in my opinion, a great indie mix is infinitely harder to do than a great major label artist mix. Sunday morning with YouTube for me. I've got notes, I've got ideas on what I'm going to talk about, but then again, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about in some ways. So today is basically, it's going to lean towards mixing. So I get a lot of questions and hits from, I guess what it would be, either music producers or artists or engineers. I'm not really totally sure yet because I haven't gotten into the whole like communicating thing with the YouTube viewers. But just judging by some of the things I've seen, this is possibly a good topic to get into. Mixing. So the questions I've been asked. So the only way I can think of starting would be like go with some questions that I get asked. Okay, where do I start with regards to starting a mix? It varies. I can't really speak to one specific genre because I've done a lot of different genres. So anywhere from straight up hip hop, which I'm known for, and R&B, which I'm known for, to pop, singer-songwriter stuff, acoustic stuff. So it's always different. And one of the things that I've thought about while trying to get ready to discuss something like this would be the reality that is that you just have to do a lot of mixing to learn how to mix. So it's one of those things where my idea is you won't know until you know. And that means you won't know if the vocal is loud enough or the drums are hitting hard enough or if the acoustic guitar is bright enough. All these, there's 9 million variations to how a mix can come together and what would make it sound good and what to you and what would make it sound not good to you or to your client or to the artist that you're working with or to the general public, who's listening. So it's broad, and I'll probably maybe turn this into somewhat of a series where I can talk about certain aspects of it just for a little while until either you and or both of us overdose on it, because there's a lot to take in. I mean, we're talking about, I've said it before, I've done somewhere probably close to 10,000 recording sessions. That would be recording and or mixing. And that's not an exaggeration when I look at over 300 sessions a year from 1993 to 2010. And after that, I've probably done 250 a year instead of 300 a year. Back in those early days of in the 90s and into the 2000s, there were times where I worked on sometimes 5 songs in a day, and that would involve recording them and making a quick mix of them. So what I'm trying to get at is that it takes a lot of repetition, and there are definitely things that came along the way, whereas I actually got it. There were things that click as you pick up different skills and things to look for, things to listen for, things to know. So in looking at my notes, you won't know until you know. That's a big one for me, and I think that is, there's no shortcut, and I think if there's things that you could look to do if you were up and coming would be, like I've said in a previous segment, you need to listen to a lot of music. You need to A-B things and A-B your mixes to things, and I'm not saying that you should try and copy something, but that's there is some reference to gather with regards to levels and panning and effect treatments and things of that nature. So listening, getting into comparisons, until you develop your own voice. It's like anything else. It's like guitar playing or painting or photography. The people that get past the level of beginner or novice are the ones that eventually find their own voice, and everything that they do is basically intuitive. It's a feel thing. It's not, why is that vocal that level, or why are the guitar parts that volume. It's a matter of, it's just something that happened along the way while you were adjusting levels and adjusting EQ and adjusting pan and adjusting effects that were treating the actual vocals. You know, generally speaking, most people are working on indie artist work at this point, because the labels are literally not what they used to be, whereas they would actually develop acts. So acts are developing in the indie channel now. And from what I've experienced, and I have a lot of experience in mixing indie records, is that they aren't as well made as what label records brought my way, let's say, in the 90s and 2000s. Now, what does that mean? What that means is there's an easy way to tell in certain respects. If the production is great, if the vocal is great, if all the parts are great, it's actually pretty easy to mix. Things have a place. There's a reason why the vocal is doing what it's doing. The performance is at a very high level. The recording quality is at a high level. The instrumentation, the arrangement, all these things have been vetted, but not so much at the indie level. And in my opinion, a great indie mix is infinitely harder to do than a great major label artist mix, because a major label artist has already gotten to the point where they understand how to craft a record and how to make a recording, where the indie label artist is, or the independent artist, is literally just not in the know. And they may have only been working on, let's just say, 10 songs in their entire lives at this point. They're a new artist. They've written 15 songs, 10 songs, and they decide they want to do an EP. And those first 6 songs are the first songs of their entire career. Now, how do you put that against someone who's on their 3rd album, who has literally written 15 songs per album? They're on song 45 or 50 in their lives. They have a little bit more foundation to work from. And those things are real. I mean, I can't say that like the first 10, 15 songs that I ever recorded or mixed made any sense to me in comparison to how they do now. It's just reality. You need to put the reps in. You need to grind a bit and learn things. I mean, you may be a savant. You may be working with the right people, whereas, you know, this new artist his or her first album may have some gems on there just because somewhere along the line everything came together. I'm not really sure how I'm going to break down this into reasonable segments so that it's just not crazy time as far as YouTube time for me and for you. But I'll just go as I feel it. So I'm just looking back on a couple of other notes. I do get often asked speakers or headphones. That's a common one. Both. I listen on a pair of speakers. I haven't changed speakers often over the past, I'd say over the past 25 years, I've used 3 different main speakers. For a long time, I used the Mackie H824s, I believe, and I used those for several years, all through all of my early hip-hop stuff, through tons of R&B with Mariah Carey and Stevie J and all of Stevie J's productions, which, you know, that'll be somewhere down the line. I'll probably get into talking about some of that craziness. Into the mid-2000s, I was still using the Mackies, and then I think I switched over to NHTs and B&Ws for a little while, and somewhere along the line, 7 or 8 years ago, I switched to these M Audios, and I thought they were just going to be a backup pair of speakers that were like, you know, just beaters that I could just sort of trash every once in a while if I just wanted to switch off. And I found to like them, and I liked what I was getting out of them as a reference. And my feeling on this just came up the other day. A friend of mine asked me about speakers, and I was like, well, the key thing is that you know the pair of speakers that you're on very well. So you listen to music on them constantly, whether it's stuff that you mix and record or pre-recorded stuff, you know, commercially released music. Because it is a reference for you to listen on your speakers and have a point of reference as to how you want things to sound and how you're going to try and make them sound. So to me, it doesn't matter if they are, you know, Sony somethings or whatever, some home stereo speaker, as long as there's not a void in the speaker that will cause you trouble in hearing frequencies, you know, because some speakers will have literally like a dip or bump, whereas you'll hear too much of a certain frequency or not enough of a frequency. And that's a lot to work around. So you would want something that doesn't have any gaps, so that you can hear at least evenly what's going on. And then as your ears build that point of reference over time, and you build that intuitive sense of volumes and pans and EQs and treatments, it would be second nature. It's something you wouldn't even think about, and you would immediately know when you hear something off on your speakers that okay, yeah, there's definitely an inherent problem there with, for example, like that vocal is too bright because nothing sounds like that on my speakers. And I do go to headphones often when I want to just go super full range and blast off and zone out. I've been using the same pair of headphones, almost literally the same pair, probably for at least 22 or 3 years. The Sonys, they used to be the MDR V6s, and now they're the 7502s. They're $100, I think, at Guitar Center or whatever, any one of those kind of places. So this has been a mixing nerd segment, and anybody that knows me knows that while being a recording engineer and mixing engineer, they're some of the least favorite people in the world for me to ever be near. I don't go to AES conventions and hang out with engineering guys, generally speaking. I probably have like 3 friends that I consider even remotely wanting to be around, because generally speaking, mix engineers and recording engineers are somewhat like some of the most miserable people I've ever met. They think everything is about gear and nothing is about the artist, and nothing is about having a well-rounded life or quality of life. It's an unbelievably weird segment of the universe, and it's infinitely small. We're talking about a very tiny industry that really thinks a lot of itself.